Can I just also say on the specific points he makes, I understand that Alwyn's owner, Mr Komarak, who's long criticised the Putin regime, is in discussions with the Czech Republic government regarding the joint venture with Gazprom and removing its involvement.
We now come to the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, Angela Rayner.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and can I also welcome Ukrainian MPs to this House today. And Mr Speaker, can I start by wholeheartedly welcoming the positive steps towards returning Nazardine Zaghari-Ratcliffe and Anusha Ashuri to the UK. I'm sure members across the House want to show their support for their families and them. I know the Minister would agree that this devastating situation must never be repeated, and other British nationals still trapped in Iran need to be brought home. So will the Minister commit to a review of these cases to understand what more could have been done by the British government to secure releases, and whether the lazy comments of the Prime Minister worsened the situation?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I first of all say that I can't yet confirm the reports we've seen in the media, but of course it feels like positive signs, and of course no one wants more than me, but I'm sure all members of the House, to see Nazanin, but also all of the arbitrarily detained nationals reunited with their loved ones. Yeah. I can tell the Honourable Lady, having worked for 2 years with the concerted diplomatic effort led by the Prime Minister, that we have done absolutely everything that we can. She shouldn't give succour to the despotic regime that detained our nationals in Iran or around the world by suggesting it's anyone else's responsibility other than theirs.
Angela Rayner.
Mr Speaker, it's exactly for that reason that I asked for the review, that it's important to learn from our mistakes so we don't end up with other innocent families facing this ordeal again. So I hope the Minister will consider my comments. Mr Speaker, I'd like to thank all of the people who have been working tirelessly to bring British nationals home from Iran, our diplomatic staff and our world-leading British intelligence agencies. The role of the British intelligence today is critical in the face of Putin's aggression. The Deputy Prime Minister oversaw our foreign intelligence services as Foreign Secretary. So can he confirm if at any time he overruled or ignored direct advice from the British security services?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Can I say to the Honourable Lady, what she suggests is nonsense. She's talking about the House of Lords Appointments Commission. They have a vetting process. I have never overruled intelligence advice, and I wouldn't comment on the details of it. What I would say and would agree with her on the strength, the agility of the British diplomatic service, which time and time again are the unsung heroes in returning British nationals, often less celebrated cases than this, but I think now is a great opportunity to recognise the heroic work they do.
Rayner.
Absolutely, I agree with the Minister regarding his comments on their heroic work. The Right Honourable Member was Foreign Secretary on the 17th of March 2020, when British intelligence reportedly warned against the granting of peerage to the Prime Minister's close friend and now Lord Lebedev of Hampton and Siberia. 48 hours later, the Prime Minister visited Lebedev at his home in London. Details of that meeting have never been released. In July 2020, Lebedev's appointment as peer was announced. So can he tell the House what changed between the security warning and the appointment?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Sorry, the Honourable Lady knows full well all individuals nominated for a peerage are done so in recognition of what their contribution is to society. And I should say, that includes those of Russian origin who contribute brilliantly to our nation, many of whom in this country are critics of the Putin regime. Live peerages are vetted by the House of Lords Appointments Commission for matters of probity, and frankly, I think she should know better.
Angela Rayner.
Mr Speaker, what I do know better is the central duty of any government is to keep the British people safe. There are now widespread reports that the Prime Minister did not accept warnings from our own intelligence services, granting a Russian oligarch, the son and business partner of a KGB spy a seat here in this Parliament. It shouldn't matter if such a warning was about a close personal friend of the Prime Minister. It shouldn't matter if he gave the Prime Minister thousands of pounds of gifts, and it shouldn't matter how much champagne and caviar he serves. There's no ifs or buts when it comes to the safety of the British people. So I ask the Deputy Prime Minister, can he guarantee that the Prime Minister never asked anyone to urge the security services to revise, reconsider or withdraw their assessment of Lord Lebedev of Hampton and Siberia?
Deputy Prime Minister.
The suggestion she's making is sheer nonsense. But if she wants to talk about national security, then I remind her that she and her shadow cabinet colleagues not so long ago wanted the honourable member for Islington North. Mr Speaker, a man who wanted and talked about abolishing the army, pulling out of Trident, she voted for that. Has there ever been a more ridiculous, reckless, naive moment to call for unilateral nuclear disarmament and pulling out of NATO? A Labour government would put at risk our security. We're doing everything we can to protect it.
Rayner.
To NATO. And may I remind the Deputy Prime Minister that it was his Prime Minister in 2015 that said he wasn't sure if it was morally irresponsible to work with Putin. So I don't think he's on safe grounds there. Last week, Mr Speaker, my right honourable friend, the Leader of the Opposition, said that Britain should never again be at the mercy of a foreign dictatorship for our energy and fuel security. This week, the Prime Minister has gone cap in hand from one dictator to another on a begging mission to the Saudi prince to bail him out. Mr Speaker, the government have had 12 years to end their reliance on foreign oil and invest in homegrown energy to secure our supplies. Their failure has left us all vulnerable, relying on another murderous dictator to keep the lights on and pumps open.
I'm going to hear this question. If some people don't want... Somebody want to make a... If you want a little argument, I'm more than happy, because we can argue outside when you're there. But for the moment, I need to get on. I want to hear the question. Angela Rayner.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The government benches have a choice. They could accept Labour's plan to save working families hundreds of pounds on bills funded with a one-off levy on the soaring profits of big energy companies. So I ask the Deputy Prime Minister, is their only plan to keep on begging?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, can I just gently say to the honourable lady that when she was campaigning, as the rest of them were, to make the honourable member for Islington North Prime Minister, this Prime Minister was Foreign Secretary leading the response to the nerve agent attack.
Hold on. I hate to say it, you can't keep going back for 12 years as a defensive mechanism. What we want to do, I'll decide, thank you. What I want you to do, Deputy Prime Minister, please, if we could try and stick to the general, I have a lot of people ahead of me who are desperate to get in without talking about history. How far we want to go back is one thing in passing. Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. When she was...
Order. Sir Desmond, he is not responsible for the opposition's policies. This is about the government. This is about questions to the Deputy Prime Minister. I'll put the questions and decide which to write. Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I wanted just to point out, and I hope it's not ancient history, that the Prime Minister was, as Foreign Secretary, galvanising the response to the nerve agent attack in Salisbury at the time where the honourable member, the former leader of the Labour Party, was siding with Putin against the UK. What did the honourable lady have to say on Sky News? He's a very strong leader. She can't wait for him to become Prime Minister.
There is a fuel energy crisis in Britain. Democracy is at risk. We must support the courageous efforts of President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people. These uncertain times require leadership with integrity. A leader that works with the security services, can be trusted to say the right thing for British diplomacy and provide security for the British people. Instead, Mr Speaker, we have this sorry excuse of a government sat before us. They hike tax on 27 million working people while the super rich increase their wealth. They watch energy prices rise by over 50% while the companies enjoy profits they didn't even expect. And they cavort with Russian oligarchs in luxury villas while neglecting the security of the British people. And remember, Mr Speaker, they partied while the country was in lockdown and were unable to see their dying loved ones. Can the Deputy Prime Minister look the British people in the eye and really say this government is doing their best in their interest?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, I'll tell you what this government, this Prime Minister have done. 1,000 Russian individuals sanctioned, a combined wealth $45 billion. The impact of the sanctions and the diplomatic effort that this Foreign Secretary and this Prime Minister have led, the ruble plummeting, the Russian stock market at record lows, doubled the interest rates. We've also showed, Mr Speaker, the big-hearted spirit of this government and indeed this nation, with the 5,500 visas granted to Ukrainians to come here, and also the humanitarian route, which has now got 100,000 sponsors applying to come to take Ukrainian families in these homes. While she's in her social media echo chamber, that's what this government is doing.